Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Gopi Janavada Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tirvanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tirvanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Radha Radhanath ki, Jai Gaura Hare ki, Rantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Krishnatai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna everyone. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to serve by our discussions today on Srimad Bhagavatam. The verse that we're going to be discussing is from Canto 4, Chapter 12, Text 48. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we'll read the text. Prayatah kirtayet pratah samavaye dvijanmanam sayam cha punya shlokasya dhruvasya charitam mahat. So we can read word by word. Prayatah kirtayet pratah samavaye dvijanmanam sayam cha punya shlokasya dhruvasya charitam mahat. And then line by line. Prayatah kirtayet pratah samavaye dvijanmanam sayam cha punya shlokasya dhruvasya charitam mahat. Prayatah kirtayet pratah samavaye dvijanmanam sayam cha punya shlokasya dhruvasya charitam mahat. Would anyone like to read? janmanam sayang cha punyash Dhruvasya charitam mahat. Prayatah kirtayet pratah. Sayang Dhruvasya charitam. So we'll read the word for word translation. Prayatah, with great care. Kirtayet, one should chant. Pratah, in the morning. Samavaye, in the association. Dvi janmanam, of the twice born. Sayang, in the evening. Cha, also. Punya shlokasya, of sacred renown. Dhruvasya, of Dhruva. Charitang, character. Mahat, great. We read the translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation is, the great sage Maitreya recommended one should chant of the character and activities of Dhruva Maharaj, both in the morning and in the evening, with great attention and care, in a society of brahmanas or other twice-born persons. Purport. It is said that only in the association of devotees can one understand the importance of the character and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or His devotees. In this verse, it is especially recommended that Dhruva Maharaj's character be discussed in a society of the twice-born, which refers to the qualified Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. One should especially seek the society of Brahmanas who are elevated to the position of Vaishnavas. Thus, discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes the character and pastimes of devotees and the Lord, is very quickly effective. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been organized for this purpose. In every center of the society, not only in the morning, evening, or noon, but practically 24 hours a day, there is continuous devotional service going on. Anyone who comes in contact with the society automatically becomes a devotee. We have actual experience that many karmis and others come to the society and find a very pleasing and peaceful atmosphere in the temples of ISKCON. In this verse, the word Dvi Janmanam means of the twice-born. Anyone can join the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and become initiated to become twice-born. As recommended by Sanatana Goswami, by the process of initiation and authorized training, any man can become twice-born. The first birth is made possible by the parents, and the second birth is made possible by the spiritual father and Vedic knowledge. Unless one is twice born, one cannot understand the transcendental characteristics of the Lord and His devotees. Study of the Vedas is therefore forbidden for Shudras. Simply by academic qualifications, a Shudra cannot understand the transcendental science. At the present moment, throughout the entire world, the educational system is geared to produce Shudras. A big technologist is no more than a big Shudra. Kalo Shudra Sambhavaha. In the age of Kali, everyone is a Shudra. Because the whole population of the world consists only of Shudras, there is a decline of spiritual knowledge and people are unhappy. The Krishna consciousness movement has been started especially to create qualified brahmanas to broadcast spiritual knowledge all over the world, for thus people may become very happy. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyanangina Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Ayam Rupakadamahyam Tati Swapadantikam Ma Om Vishnu Padaya Vishnu Prestaya Bhutale Namate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Utinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastrati Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Again, thank you all so much for this service, and I pray for all your blessings to this class so that we can appreciate the message of Srimad Bhagavatam today. So this chapter has been describing Dhruva Maharaj's ascent to the spiritual world. And this is very significant because this is actually the aim of all beings in this world. It's the ultimate goal for everyone to actually achieve freedom from the material world. This material world, in fact, has been designed for that purpose, to help the living beings get out of it. So it may sound a little strange that this entire place is meant for everyone who's in it to actually get out of it. Because if we think about it in ordinary terms, we want to retain members in our society or in our groups or in our home. We don't want them to leave. But the material world is not a separate entity from the spiritual world, like they're competing with each other for inhabitants. It's not like that. Actually, Srila Prabhupada says that to Krishna, the material world and the spiritual world are the same. It's just for us that both are different because of the way we utilize the material energy. And the analogy that he gives us in order to understand this point is that of electricity. To an engineer, electricity is the same. It's only to the user, the end user, that electricity appears different depending on whether we use it for heating or cooling. Actually, diametrically opposite. So us, the users of the material world, thinking that it's meant for our pleasure, therefore see it in a material light of being temporary, full of ignorance and being miserable. But for Krishna, the energy is the same for his energy. If we learn under the guidance of the scripture and our spiritual authorities to utilize the material world in its correct context for the service of Krishna, then it becomes the spiritual world. Then we realize there's actually no difference. So the ignorance of our position as servants of Krishna and our ignorance of the proper use of the material world is actually what keeps us in the material world. And in order to break this, for us to break this ignorance by engaging in devotional service, we also break the cycle of birth and death that we're currently in. The ignorance or the illusion that makes us think that this world is for our pleasure is described in Srimad Bhagavatam. Yata vinimayo yatra tu sargo mitra. Okay, we see this material world as a reflection of the spiritual world because we want to use it for ourselves. And when we awaken to devotional service, we awaken from our ignorance. We're situated again in our constitutional position as the Lord's servant. Then we can become candidates to leave the cycle of birth and death and exist eternally in the spiritual world, which is characterized by devotional service only. Service only for Krishna and for ourselves. So it's very important for us to learn from the example of devotees like Dhruva Maharaj. Example is better than precept. We can follow in his footsteps, like Krishna says in Srimad Bhagavatam, to attain the perfection of life. So Srimad Bhagavatam is full of histories like this, of pure devotees who are able to attain the perfection of life, who are able to attain the goal of life, get out of the cycle of birth and death and go back to the spiritual world. This is why when the sages of Naimisharanya asked Suta Goswami to describe to them what would be of ultimate benefit for all living beings, right? Ultimate benefit, of course, guiding them towards that ultimate goal of getting out of the material world. Suta Goswami could have said many things, but he spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam, because from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the people could get that ultimate benefit. Pumsam ekantataha prayas. They could learn how they could get out of this material world through devotional service. Okay. This literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, it's only about devotional service. It's only about those who have perfected devotional service, and it's only about he who devotional service is for. Right? That's what makes it pure. That's what makes it the Amala Purana, as Lord Chaitanya described. It's about nothing material. Right? So the Bhagavatam is of the nature of the spiritual world, which is again only about devotional service. So Srimad Bhagavatam is above the modes of nature. It's above mere goodness. There are a lot of lessons that we can get in material goodness, and whereas goodness is important, it's not the ultimate stage that a living entity can reach. People often think that, but there is a stage that's even higher than that. The stage of pure devotional service, the stage that we must attain to get into the spiritual world. That stage is called Shurasattva. Um, it's above mere goodness. So what to speak of goodness? Srimad Bhagavatam is, of course, way above the modes of passion and ignorance as well. Ordinary literature that just exists to thrill people. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Raj Govardhan Hari ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. So the ordinary literature of this world doesn't even teach morals anymore, goodness, mostly to thrill or entertain, right? Stories that are based in passion and ignorance. But we have to attain access to spiritual literatures in order to get out of this world. And Srimad Bhagavatam, though, is meant for us to understand when we're at least on the level of goodness. Goodness is the level that we have to attain in order to achieve access to the Vedic literatures. This is what Srila Prabhupada says in this purport. So it means that goodness is the stepping stone to transcendence. Even in the purport of Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 1, first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada says there as well that Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for those in goodness, right? Those who are twice born. This is because Srimad Bhagavatam is an expansion of or an explanation of the Gayatri Mantra. The Gayatri Mantra is granted to those who have qualified themselves by spiritual practices under the guidance of an authority in order to achieve the Gayatri Mantra and then meditate on the Lord. So this training makes one qualified to be twice born. And so the Srimad Bhagavatam is taken in the same light, being an expansion of the Gayatri Mantra. So the first verse says, Satyam Param Dhimahi. Right? We read Srimad Bhagavatam and we actually meditate on the Lord, the absolute truth, the Satyam Param. The twice born, through their training, can actually realize the Lord in this literature. They can see Him in these pages. That's their meditation. They can actually see Him in everything. By their training, they're able to see Him in deity form, in all beings, in everything around them. That's how deep their meditation is, how deep their realization of Him is, how deep their remembrance of Him is. Right? And so it's said in Srimad Bhagavatam in Canto 2, Chapter 1, Text 6, Etavan Sankhya Yoghabhyam Swadharma Parinishtayam Janmalabha Paraha Pumsam Ante Narayana Smritihi. That's the perfection of devotional service. Whatever process of spiritual training one is in, eventually one must come to devotional service, and that perfection is Ante Narayana Smritihi. To remember Krishna, to be conscious of Krishna all the time, to see Him, to be in meditation on Him everywhere. That is actually the height of devotional service. He said that we must be situated in devotional service to be liberated. So the perfection of devotional service is that remembrance of Him. So we can see that approaching Srimad Bhagavatam in the way that we would approach any other book is just not possible to get into the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam. What's our qualification to read a book? That we have access to it, that we can understand the language of it, that maybe we have a little knowledge of its background knowledge of its subject. What's our goal? Do we want to be entertained a little bit? Are we trying to pass an afternoon? Right? All of that can't apply to Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is a meditation on the Lord ultimately, because it is the Lord. We are realizing Him through this reading. So we can understand that it's not ordinary to have access to it. Not everyone can just read it and understand its subject matter so easily. Right. So by us being able to do that, by being able to attain that meditation on Srimad Bhagavatam, we can actually be transformed from that platform of material goodness all the way to transcendental goodness, right? The state when we can meditate on the Lord always. So that liberation, Muktalingaha, this is what was achieved by Dhruva Maharaj in this chapter. This is how we can ensure that we never take birth again. So, in order for us to get to that realization of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have to come to that level of at least goodness. And Srila Prabhupada describes here that we do this through the association of those who are brahmanas, those who are on that level of goodness or higher, right? Samavayedvi janmanam. Those who are able to meditate on the Lord. Dhimahi. This association is so important that it's emphasized repeatedly in our scriptures. We can take in particular the Nectar of Instruction, which is very foundational literature to devotional service. Srila Rupa Goswami speaks of association in many ways. At least twice he says in verses 2 and verses 3 that we should avoid the association of those who are not devoted to the Lord. Right? Twice he says that. And then in verse 4 he emphasizes the ways that we must associate with devotees of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada states in the purport to that verse, like he says here, that he has created this ISKCON movement to facilitate that good association, to provide that association so that anyone can be elevated by contact with that good association to the level of good, and then from there higher. And so in the society, the discussions of the Lord are going on all the time. The verse recommends morning and night, but at any time of the day, we can actually be hearing of these discussions. And interestingly, thanks to social media and the post-COVID experience, we're able to participate in discussions any time of the day from all parts of the world. It's very possibly 24 hours. When I was growing up, not giving away my age, but there was recorded classes and you could listen to them the whole day. Now you can actually be present in live meetings and discussions on spiritual life. So His Holiness Indradyumna Swami Maharaj was saying in a class on Sunday that this good association is so vital to perfecting all the activities of the Lord. Right? Everything, including of course hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, being qualified to read Srimad Bhagavatam and being able to get into the realization of Srimad Bhagavatam, right, to the level actually of being twice born. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport to Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 16, that if we serve the servants of the Lord, these twice born persons, these people who are on the level of goodness and transcendental goodness, then we'll gradually get the qualities of such. Okay? So we could argue, or there's some who could argue, that they don't always get the physical association of the twice born. It's not something that is possible all the time. But Prabhupada has also instructed us repeatedly that if we follow the teachings, the Vani of the pure devotees, then that's like associating with them. If we hear from the pure devotees, that's like associating. So following the instructions and hearing from them, that's something we can do all the time. That's the association is also facilitated in that way. And we can practically see that from the example of Srila Prabhupada's disciples. They didn't come from any twice-born backgrounds, but they had faith in his instructions. They followed those instructions completely, and they heard from him all the time. And because of that, they were very quickly elevated to the level of the twice-born. They were able to accomplish things that were beyond their capabilities ordinarily. This is a practical example of that. This is what the good association in ISKCON will achieve, a transformation of the heart that will pave the way from this material world to the spiritual world. So with that authorized training, Srila Prabhupada says that we can take the second birth. So, the second birth, what does it mean? The first birth is by the mother and father. The second birth is by the spiritual master, who is one's spiritual father, and by Vedic knowledge. Right? Vedic knowledge is the mother. And when we realize that Vedic knowledge through the association of good devotees, this is how it becomes practically realized. So this is possible for anyone, Srila Prabhupada also says here. Even in Kali Yuga, when everyone is considered a Shudra and nobody is twice born. He said that this is by the power of association. But why is it that everyone is a Shudra? Kali Yuga. We know that Krishna created 4 divisions of society. In Bhagavad Gita, he says in the 4th chapter, Chatur Varnyam Yashashtam Gunakarma Vibhagashaha. So there's Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. But we find this very interesting situation that in Kali Yuga, everyone's a Shudra. So this is actually because whatever birth we take, in whichever division, we get that birth by our qualification, by our mode in our previous life. Krishna says in the 14th chapter that all species are made possible by birth in this material nature, and he is a seed-giving father. And Prabhupada says in the purport that it's through our karma we create that birth. So because we're mostly situated in ignorance, right, quite a bit of passion but almost no goodness, we're actually creating a consciousness of ignorance. So we take a birth in ignorance, and that is of course at the level of Shudra. Right? That's what's happened to everyone in this age. Nobody is actually at the level of goodness. What characterizes the level of goodness? Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that these are the qualities of a Brahmana, the qualities of someone in goodness. Almost no one in this age is situated in these qualities. So because we're not in those qualities, it means that almost nobody is at the level of goodness. Right? So because we're constantly situated in this passion and ignorance and reinforcing it with our activities, with all the other items of passion and ignorance as described also by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, the foods we eat, the people we spend time with, and so on, we just keep perpetuating these qualities. Right? It leads to that consciousness which carries us into our next birth, which determines that consciousness determining that next birth, which means a birth in it, a birth at the level of Rudra. The other classes are variously situated in the modes. Brahmanas are situated in goodness, Kshatriyas are situated in passion, Vaishyas are situated in the mixed modes of passion and ignorance, and Shudras are situated fully in ignorance. Although we understand that not all the modes are purely represented in one person. Right? No one's really situated only in goodness, or no one's only situated in ignorance. The modes are always competing with each other. Krishna also describes that in Bhagavad Gita, so there's quite a mix of influences. But there's a predominant mode that someone is situated in that determines their actual nature. So even if someone's mostly in ignorance, there is that passion, that drive. Sometimes they may be situated in a little bit of goodness, but there's always, say, a baseline mode. So the baseline of all of us in Kali Yuga is ignorance. So we're all Shudras. So what's the hope then? Srila Prabhupada is saying here that even if we are educated Shudras, we're just a bigger Shudra than the others. So this could be taken the wrong way, right? Because we often think that education is the way to uplift ourselves. Srila Prabhupada is saying it's not the case. Because what is actually in question here is our consciousness and not our education. Because education is not impelling us to develop these qualities. Education is not emphasizing peacefulness and self-control and austerity and purity and tolerance, right? Education is just teaching you how to get ahead. That's it. It may not expressly teach you how to get ahead at the expense of others, but it rewards you for that. That's the truth. So it means that all the encouragement is pushing you forward in passion and ignorance. Any way you can get ahead, get ahead. Achieve what you need. That's saying, I want it all, I want it now, and by any means. Yeah. So it also supports a society that makes you prioritize yourself over others. Again, above developing qualities of good. It, well, that's, if we just dwell on that point for a moment. If we're trying to achieve something for ourselves, inevitably it means that it's at the expense of someone. That's why this world is relative. Everything is of relative good. It's good for me and maybe someone related to me, but it's not good for everyone. And we'll find that in all situations. This is in contrast to devotional service, which is absolute good. Anything that's purely done for Krishna is good for everybody, all the time, anywhere. That's an irrevocable fact. This is the nature of the spiritual world, the spiritual activity. But material activities are always going to disadvantage someone or something. At least it will always disadvantage the Supreme Lord because we're using it for ourselves. According to Ishopanishad, the wrong use of whatever we have. So it means that material education is never going to advance someone from the level of a Shudra to a level of a Brahman. It's not doing that because it's not encouraging the quality. Even though it may grant one knowledge, we have to consider what the definition of knowledge is. Knowledge is for advancement. But material knowledge is not advancing anybody because it's just keeping you here in the cycle of birth and death. How is that advancement? So even on the knowledge point, material education doesn't score. The point then is that a good material education is not going to benefit anyone to rise above a level of a Shudra, but it's not even going to be good for any of the other classes. The other classes that were traditionally twice born, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, even they are not at the level of being twice born because they're also being born in the qualities of ignorance, in the quality of ignorance, in the mode of ignorance, with the qualities of ignorance. This is the reality. So they can't actually give guidance to the Shudras. In the previous ages, the Shudras were the only ones who had that challenge of being in ignorance. Krishna describes it very succinctly. When you're in ignorance, you don't know what ought to be done and you don't know what ought not to be done. So the Shudras used to get the guidance from the other twice-born classes as to what to do so that they could use all their abilities in the service of the Lord. It's not to say that if you're born as a Shudra, you can't do anything good. You have talents and you have abilities. You just need to be guided. Krishna created all the varnas, all the divisions of society so that everybody can be engaged in the service. So it means that even someone who's on the level of a Shudra can do that, but they just need guidance to do that effectively. But in this age, if even the traditionally twice born, the Kshatriyas, the Brahmanas and the Vaishyas are also on the level of ignorance, how are they able to guide us? So this is the situation that we're in. It means that everyone is actually ignorant like this and there's no one to guide anybody. So your material education can't help you. A ceremonial initiation that sometimes happens, right? That's also given sometimes areas of society. Even a ceremonial initiation without any real training can help one. And if we remain unqualified in this way, Srila Prabhupada says, we can't access Vedic knowledge. We can't try to study Vedic knowledge because we won't be able to be qualified to understand the knowledge from the Vedas and use that knowledge to escape the world or to help others. So now it may seem like another unfair prohibition. It means that we all have this problem of being born in ignorance and we can't read the Vedas. The Vedic knowledge has been given as a manual, a companion to this world, so that we can utilize it effectively to get out of it. He said that's the purpose of it. So why would Krishna give us the knowledge and then we actually can't use it? Because in this age we're not qualified. So the problem is if we're unqualified and we try to access the Vedas, it's like a knife in the hands of a thief versus a knife in the hands of a surgeon. A surgeon can utilize the knowledge, can utilize the knife to heal. And the criminal is utilized to harm. Vedic knowledge is like that. If someone is qualified and they understand the Vedic knowledge and then they transmit that to others, it can help liberate them because the knowledge is being understood in the right context. But if you give this knowledge to somebody who is unqualified, they give their own interpretations on it. They try to twist the meaning to suit themselves. They mislead other people because maybe they sound very authoritative or charismatic or they have some qualifications or look good on the surface. What are they doing? The greatest service to people that they could ever do. Misleading them about the meaning of the Vedas, the way out of this world, dooming people to perpetual repetition of birth and death. It is dangerous for an unqualified person to have access to Vedic knowledge. Right? It is something that they can harm other people with. So again, we come back to the sages of Naimisharanya considering how the unqualified people of Kali Yuga were going to get access to Vedic knowledge. The Lord had mercifully arranged that Sutta Goswami present to such people. But then on top of that, he appears as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he gives us the process by which we can become qualified to access Vedic knowledge in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. How does he do that? He gives us a chanting of the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Because by chanting, since the chanting does not consider our qualifications, the chanting does not consider whether we are Shudras, it doesn't consider any level that we may be. The chanting allows us to repeat the holy names, and through that we become qualified to understand Srimad Bhagavatam. To access Srimad Bhagavatam, understand Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught the chanting, and he taught the importance of Bhagavatam. He encouraged, he taught Bhagavatam, he taught others Bhagavatam and encouraged that we learn Bhagavatam along with chanting the holy names. And then Srila Prabhupada brought that movement, the holy name and the Bhagavatam together, packaged it ingeniously in the Harinam Sankirtan, where we're distributing the holy names and we're distributing transcendental literature so that anyone and everyone gets access to this literature and way out of this material world. So he also created this ISKCON movement by which the spiritual association that needs to go along with the holy name and the Bhagavatam is given also. So this is now available to anyone, whatever social background you have, whatever religious background, educational background, so on. Anyone can be elevated to the level of the twice born by proper training. We just have to remember that the training doesn't stop even when we come to the level of second initiation. The mercy of Srila Prabhupada and our spiritual masters that has given us a minimum requirement for that initiation. But we still have to come to the point of Shamo, Damas, Tapaha, Shocha, Arjavam, Shantir, Jnanam, Vijnanam. We have to become peaceful and self-controlled and austere and tolerant. We have to become religious and wise. It's an ongoing process that we have to be constantly engaged in. Then Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita that naturally that will lead to us getting detached from this world. We can come to that Brahma Bhuta platform. From there we can actually achieve pure devotional service. That's actually the point where pure devotional service begins. And then from there we can get to the remembrance of the constant absorption. So what follows on from here is that not only does our birth not hold us back from this platform, but our work doesn't hold us back either. We may think that to develop the qualities of a Brahmin we need to engage in the work of a Brahmin. But we can see here that we can develop these qualities in whatever profession we are. We can become detached from the material world in whatever profession we are. We can achieve the Brahma Bhuta platform, real devotional service, draw from the world. So becoming twice born doesn't mean we actually have to be involved in perfection. Otherwise, Krishna wouldn't be giving Arjuna the instruction constantly in Bhagavad Gita not to give up your duty. No one has to give up their duty. We just have to become qualified in that duty. We have to develop the qualities of a Brahmin in whatever duty we're in. This is the important. So it may seem a little daunting when we read about it, this long list of qualifications, but we have the means and we have the mercy. We have the means through devotional service, and Srila Rupa Goswami has made it very practical. There's just 5 potent items we can focus on very easily: chanting the holy names, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, taking association of devotees, visiting or residing in a holy place, and a holy place can be anywhere that we are in the world as long as the discussions of the Lord and the chanting are going on, and rendering service to the Lord, to the Archavigra of the Lord, the form of the Lord. That can also be done whether one is physically on the altar or not. These are all practical things that we can perfect. The means are there, and the mercy is also there. Because Krishna says if we're constantly devoted to serving Him with love, He will give that understanding. He'll give us that ability in order to realize Him in all of this knowledge. So everything has been provided for us by the mercy of the Lord, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And then we take that responsibility that we have after getting that means and mercy, and we give it to others. This is also an essential component. Srila Prabhupada is stating his mission here, that he wants to create qualified brahmanas to broadcast spiritual knowledge. So we become qualified, and then we broadcast this knowledge from that point of qualification to help others. And this is what will please the Lord ultimately. Right? When the children of a father, when the stronger children of a father assist the weaker children, the father is very pleased. So if we are becoming qualified and we're helping others to become qualified, ultimately to free themselves out of misery, this brings the greatest pleasure to Krishna. This is what Srila Prabhupada wants us to do. He said that his spiritual master pushed him. He pushed his disciples. His disciples are pushing him. We have to help push others all the way back to the spiritual world, all the way out of this material world. So thank you so much. Thank you all so much. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Are there any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So I've read about like a lot of religions, right? I've studied a lot of religions, and I can admit it myself that Krishna consciousness by far comes on top, right? The knowledge is very profound, and the principles and regulations and all that, right? So there's something I don't get, right? So this Mataji on Sunday tells me that his son doesn't want to take Krishna consciousness, right? And I'm thinking to myself, and I just told my brother that, whoa, that is just so weird. Because if I was born into this, if I had the opportunity to be born in this, I would be so lucky, thrilled. And so my question is, you find someone born into this movement, but they don't take the movement, right? Or they take the movement, and after some few years of practice, they convert to other religions, right? Rule number 4 says no illicit sex, right? Only engage in that when you're making Krishna consciousness kids or children. But what if the kids or the children, they don't take the movement? Would you say they are doomed to not take the movement?
So there's a few points there. I'll take them one by one. Let's start with the beginning. At the beginning. So it's not actually necessarily that the parents weren't properly Krishna conscious when they were producing these children. And we know this from a few examples from scripture. Advaita Charya. Like you're familiar with Advaita Charya. He's on the image next to Lord Chaitanya. His him and his four principal associates. Advaita Charya is on the bottom right of the Lord. And he is, of course, being a principal associate of Lord Chaitanya, very, very advanced. He's actually an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. And his consorts are energies, his energies. It means they are also transcendental personalities. But three of their sons were not devotees. So naturally it means that they were like following everything perfect. I mean, basically they're God, forms of God. But there wasn't a guarantee that even though their children were produced in the most spiritual way, that they were actually devotees. Even the Lord's own son, Bhaumasura, the son of Varahadeva and Bhumi Devi, also became a demon. And Prabhupada comments on that in the third chapter, third canto. I'm trying to remember. Second canto. Second. Prabhupada comments that it's not the birth enough, it's the association. It's the association that actually impels one towards devotional service. This is very essential. How sometimes those who are born in the correct way and born into correct families may actually be deviated away from spiritual life. There's another point that can also be made in that regard about how one comes to devotional service. So in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 7, text 28, Krishna says that we must actually have accumulated a lot of pious activity, punya karmana, to actually come to that devotional service, and we must get the mercy as well of a pure devotee to come to devotional service. But ultimately, if we get that mercy, but we haven't exactly accumulated all that pious activities enough to keep us, we may find ourselves struggling. So the mercy is always there, as much as the certain. But we may not have that spiritual strength yet because we didn't develop it in to hold on. The effort is also described in the pastime of Madhya Yashoda binding Krishna, that there must be an effort from our side and an effort from the spiritual side, from the Lord, from his devotees. So that effort is always there. The Lord and the devotees always want us to stay, but the effort may be lacking. We may not have that. We may not have accumulated enough of those credits to stay on the platform, or we may not be doing enough now to pull ourselves to that. So there is some responsibility that falls on us as well. So it is true, it's not really a guarantee that anyone who's born into ISKCON will actually stay in ISKCON. But for everybody, the importance is that when we get there, we make those sincere efforts. The Lord makes those sincere efforts. And this is how anyone can stay, wherever they come. How would you want to add any? Actually, all of that teaching was from Prabhu, from all his classes. He's always helping us understand these things. Is that okay, Prabhu? Any other questions?
You're talking about the mercy one that the devotee needs to make an endeavor to get it. It's not like you get it on your own. And Giriraj Maharaj was saying that like Radhanath Swami was in Varsana, and in the hills of Varsana he was staying there. And that time there were wild animals, leopards and other animals. And the Baba would take rest there. Radhanath Swami was one day there, and the Baba had one small stick. And then Radhanath Swami asked him, what should bring with the stick? He reckoned, no, that's for chasing the wild animals away. Anyway, that's what he said, that was the stick for. But then Radhanath Swami was like, a little puzzled that it can't really, that stick means nothing. And then he said, yes, he has that stick. The purpose is that to show that he is making an effort. although it's just a stick. So if it has to be there from the devotee, well, that's interesting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. That was really nice. So if there are no more questions, thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada.